Thanks for listening to our daily podcast. If you love what you're hearing and you want more, you can get all 3 daily hours ad-free and on demand for less than $3 per month. Go to michaelmedved.com and subscribe today. We have a special deal right now, 50% off an annual membership. Our program covers all the current controversies in the news with my independent and uncensored views. Become a MedHead member today. Find out more at michaelmedved.com. That's michaelmedved.com.
And now, your daily dose of debate, breaking news, and uncensored views. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. A great day despite the fact that there's a lot of disturbing news and confusing news about struggles that are going on around the world. One struggle, of course, the ongoing war between the Ukraine and Russia. The other potential war with Venezuela, with the U.S. seizing a major oil tanker. Did they suspect that the tanker actually was carrying drugs? And where was that oil going exactly? We'll give you some background on that. There is also all kinds of discussion about new polling data that shows a real collapse in terms of people's confidence in Donald Trump handling the economy, and particularly handling the issue of affordability. Is the issue of affordability a Democratic con job? Is it a hoax? Kristen Soltis Anderson has a column saying that that attitude, dismissing affordability not as a real issue, but as a phony issue, as a con job, that is a disastrous political policy that might doom the Republican majorities in the House and Senate that are going to be on the table next year. Because next year is, as you can recognize on the calendar, about 3 weeks from now. We are talking about imminent issues. There is this issue combining a lot of the concerns of leading policymakers and I think of ordinary Americans. Vladimir Putin held a phone call with the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, today. And why did Putin call Maduro? To express solidarity with Caracas, that's the capital of Venezuela, following the U.S. military's seizure of a Venezuelan oil tanker off the country's coast. That, according to a statement released by the Kremlin. The Kremlin said Putin reaffirmed support for the Maduro administration's efforts to safeguard Venezuela's sovereignty and national interests amid mounting international pressure. The two leaders also reviewed bilateral cooperation under a strategic partnership agreement signed earlier this year. Amazing. The Guardian in the United Kingdom has some answers to a question that they pose, and it's a question that many Americans have been grappling with, is what do we know about the oil tanker seized by the United States of America off the Venezuela coast? The oil tanker was called the Skipper. It was a tanker sanctioned by the U.S. in 2022, and it is thought to have been carrying 1.1 million barrels of Venezuelan oil. Really? That's the report in The Guardian. The U.S. has seized that oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. They report a ship that was previously sanctioned in 2022 while sailing under another name. This all occurred in a dramatic operation that further ratchets up Trump administration tensions with the government of Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro. All of this occurring while one of Maduro's most important opposition figures in Venezuela, Machado, received her Nobel Peace Prize. Actually, her daughter received it. She was concerned about her safety, and some of the agents of Maduro coming in and maybe taking her prisoner somehow. Again, everything went safely in Oslo with the daughter receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. But over recent months, the U.S. has built the largest military presence in the region. This is in the region of surrounding Venezuela and the ocean surrounding Venezuela, of course. The reason the U.S. has built up the largest military presence in the region in decades, which includes the aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is the world's newest and largest aircraft carrier. It has more than 4,000 sailors just on that one ship, plus fighter jets and accompanying warships. At the same time, the Trump administration has launched a series of deadly strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean Sea and in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, which have faced scrutiny in Congress. Some organizations have described the operations as extrajudicial executions. And that's obviously based on the notion that whoever is sailing these boats, whatever they are carrying, there's been no specific charges, no trial, no real examination. And we still don't know what the U.S. policy is attempting to achieve. President Trump says that each boat that we sink will save 25,000 American lives. Anybody who actually looks at the what the boats are likely carrying, which is cocaine, not fentanyl, says that analysis is probably ridiculous. Deadly airstrikes and a military buildup, how the U.S. pressure campaign against Venezuela has unfolded in the Caribbean. Donald Trump's goal remains opaque, but experts largely agree that the overthrow of Maduro's authoritarian government is the ultimate aim. And then they have more about the boat that was seized. What do we know about that vessel? The tanker, identified as Skipper by maritime analysts, was a very large crude carrier, VLCC, and is thought to have been carrying about 1.1 million barrels of oil loaded in Venezuela's main oil port last week. The tanker was falsely flying Guyana's flag, the country's maritime authority has said. The flag of a ship indicates where it has been registered, and under international law, ships must comply with the maritime law of that country when out at sea. However, in recent years, there's been a growth in vessels sailing under false flags, allowing them to circumvent safety regulations and international sanctions. Tracking data show that the Skipper was previously sanctioned by the U.S. in 2022 while sailing under another name, Adisa. It was accused of belonging to the so-called Shadow Fleet, which smuggles oil on behalf of Iran in order to avoid U.S. sanctions. It also made multiple trips to Venezuela and Iran in recent years, according to Marine Traffic, which provides real-time tracking of ships. Public records show the vessel is owned by Triton Navigation Corporation, which was sanctioned by the U.S. in 2022 for its involvement in transporting oil for Iran. Skipper has transported nearly 13 million barrels of Iranian and Venezuelan oil since joining the global dark fleet of tankers in 2021. So says Samir Madani, co-founder of the tankertrackers.com. Coming up, we will be talking about what all this means. There is a an analysis by Brett Baer, which is disturbing, but it seems to me very largely accurate. We will get also to new polling data that should be very alarming to the advisors of President Trump, particularly regarding the affordability issue. This and more, all coming up on The Medved Show. A part of the confusion surrounding the seizure of a Venezuelan oil tanker is the name of that ship. It appears to have many names and has flown under many different flags, and its ownership is not entirely clear. So let's call it the Skipper. That appears to be the what they're using in the British press. A Venezuelan government has said the seizure, quote, constitutes a blatant theft and an act of international piracy. And we still don't know why they singled out this particular ship. The ship departed Venezuela last week with roughly half of its cargo oil belonging to a Cuban state-run oil importer, according to documents from Venezuela's state-owned oil company seen by the Associated Press. Now, what all of this indicates is that there are lots of bad guys, Iranians, Cubans, Chinese. A lot of this oil was reported as going to China. So what is actually happening here, and what do we know about it? Brett Baer last night was on Fox, and he offered this additional analysis, clip 77.
President Trump did not say why, but he did say, quote, other things are happening. The administration has been striking alleged narco-terrorist vessels near Venezuela and is putting heavy pressure on disputed President Nicolas Maduro. Senior foreign policy correspondent Jillian Turner starts us off tonight from the State Department. Good evening, Jillian.
Good evening to you, Bet. President Trump confirms the United States military has seized this crude oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela after insisting for months now that the U.S. is, in fact, at war with drug cartels that are running these boats in the U.S. Southcom region. We've obtained this video that the Attorney General Pam Bondi posted on social media just a moment ago. You can see here during this seizure, she says the FBI, the Homeland Security Departments, and Coast Guard executed this operation with support from the War Department. You can see here U.S. service members landing a military helicopter on this vessel before then disembarking and entering. The U.S. had issued a warrant, we are learning, for this crude oil tanker, alleging it had been used to transport illegal oil from Venezuela and Iran in support of foreign terrorist organizations. The seizure comes after senior officials presented the president with potential war plans and then deployed major Navy assets to the region. While the president himself declined to state a reason for today's seizure, which could very well constitute an act of war, he did say this.
Could we see American troops on the ground in Venezuela?
I don't comment on that. I wouldn't say that one way or the other.
Part of it is because.
In this case, President Trump says the victor will, in fact, take the spoils.
When you have to follow the tanker, you're a good newsman, just follow the tanker. Get a helicopter, follow the tanker.
Is it true it's going
But we're going to, I guess so, we're going to keep the oil.
This leaves a big question. Why this particular tanker? The U.S. government has sanctioned more than 170 vessels it accuses of moving illicit oil, while the number sanctioned by other governments and organizations likely numbers more than 1,000 different tankers that are defying international boycotts and regulations and basically following their own dark purposes. Experts are in disagreement over why the Skipper was singled out and seized on yesterday, and how it plays into the wider operation in Latin America. In its statement, the government of Nicolas Maduro, claimed the seizure revealed the Trump administration's true motives. It has always been about our natural resources, the Maduro statement said, our oil, our energy, the resources that belong exclusively to the Venezuelan people. However, analysts have suggested that as the U.S. is the world's largest oil producer, there are likely other motives behind the campaign of aggression, The Guardian says, against Venezuela. Although the U.S. has seized sanctioned oil tankers before, Wednesday's action is notable for the dramatic nature of the operation. The images of U.S. Coast Guard swinging down from helicopters onto the deck of the skipper have been amplified across social media by organs of the Trump administration. In one video shared by the Department of Homeland Security, the video is soundtracked by the LL Cool J truck, Mama Said Knock You Out. Are they going to simply knock out this tanker? Where does it go? And what does it all mean? And what are the intentions for Venezuela in general? Rachel Maddow was on MSNBC, of course, and she says that Trump wants a regime change war for Venezuela's oil. And she says that it's not just observers, it's Trump himself who's confused about why he's going into it. Clip 18.
Looks like we might get a war. And it really looks like a regime change war to try to take their oil, which really is something we know a lot about in this country and is supposedly part of the reason that Trump arose in Republican politics, because he was against those sorts of things. Like, that's supposedly the whole theory of the case for why J.D. Vance exists, right, as a political figure. But the last thing, I think, is the weirdest thing to worry about, which is that Trump really doesn't seem to have any idea why he's going to war in Venezuela, nor does he seem to be in charge of any of the decisions that are leading us to this war. And so we also have to worry about who's actually running the government right now and who is actually driving us toward this regime change war that the president doesn't seem to be at the helm of. We don't know who is, and we don't know why. And that sort of careening feeling that you're having right now is the most worrying part of all of this to me.
She is right that there is a even on minor issues like the release of the video, allowing people to see the video of the September 2nd attack that sank that so-called drug boat and the killing of the two survivors. There's a video of that. Members of Congress have seen it. Why won't they release it in general? Now, what's interesting is that Trump had said he had no objection at all to releasing that video. He said that several times. And he said, but it's up to Pete Hegseth. So is Pete Hegseth now making the important decisions regarding a potential war with Venezuela? We will get to that and to some of the challenging news for Donald Trump about the way his fellow Americans view his leadership. We'll get to that coming up. And this klezmer version of Jingle Bells has not been used in any of the videos put out by the United States government about the seizure of this oil tanker, a Venezuelan oil tanker. They're identifying it, though that's even unclear. It's called the Skipper. And in any event, what they used as background music was the track from LL Cool J of Mama Said Knock You Out. And they report in The Guardian that the dissemination of such videos will probably be chalked up as a propaganda win by the Trump administration while continuing to pile pressure on Maduro. And pressure for what? Well, the pressure for him to abandon the presidency, which he very clearly cheated. And this is one of those things that obviously this is an administration that loves to talk about invalid elections. And of course, they think that the election of 2020 here in the United States, the one that Joe Biden won over Trump, the election of 2020, that was an example of a stolen election. They also claim that the election involving Juan Hernandez in Honduras was a stolen election. And the one area where they're right is the whole world, and that's why she got the Nobel Peace Prize, agrees that Maduro was not chosen in any legitimate way to be the president and to continue as the president of Venezuela. And I know that some of the experts who seem to be enthusiastic about going to war with Venezuela, and no, of course, I am not. But some of those experts believe that the Venezuelan people would rise up and support American troops who get stuck in that country. It seems to me that is like some of those extremely mistaken claims made by the Bush administration back at the time of the Iraq War, that the Iraqi people, having suffered under a miserable despot, and Saddam Hussein was even worse than Nicolas Maduro, that people would rise up and support the Americans when they came in and liberated Iraq. That really didn't happen. And I think that it's a very tricky situation to believe that an American boots on the ground situation in Venezuela is going to provoke some kind of public uprising that will take out the dictator or the authoritarian president, at the very least, who currently holds power in Venezuela. Meanwhile, there's a long report in the Washington Post which very clearly indicates that no, Pete Hegseth was not responsible for the second strike that killed people on board that alleged drug boat that was sunk with 9 people killed initially and then 2 others who were trying to survive, also being killed by U.S. weapons. They write in a lengthy article with several authors, a laser-guided bomb had killed 9 of the 11 people on board, sunk the boat's motor, and capsized the vessel's front end, according to people who have viewed or been briefed on a still classified video of the operation. As smoke from the blast cleared, a live surveillance feed provided by a U.S. aircraft high overhead showed 2 men had survived, and they were attempting to flip the wreckage, turn it over so it would be seaworthy, and they wouldn't drown. Ahead of the September 2nd mission, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth had given an order, and the order said to U.S. forces to kill the passengers, sink the boat, and destroy the drugs. 3 people familiar with the operation said. It appeared to Admiral Bradley that none of these objectives had yet been achieved by the first strike. That's what the Admiral would later recount for lawmakers. The video feed, which they should release to the public, and they haven't done it yet, despite the fact that Trump says he has no objection to it being released to the public. The video feed showed that the two men were struggling to stay atop the flotsam, which people who have seen the footage described as roughly the size of a dining room table. So there's not that much of it. Bradley turned to the military lawyer advising him and requested input. According to members of Congress who spoke with him privately last week, and people later briefed on these conversations, under the law of armed conflict, were the men now considered shipwrecked, and that's in quotes, and therefore out of the fight, rendering them unlawful targets? The admiral decided that definition did not apply, these people said. Instead, what Bradley explained to lawmakers left some with the impression that there was a prevailing lack of certainty about the existence of any drugs beneath the wreckage and whether the survivors had a means to call for help or intended to surrender. When he concluded that further action was warranted, he ordered a second strike, killing both men. Now, this story gives support to the position of Pete Hegseth that he was out of the room, that he had nothing to do with, and that Admiral Bradley, didn't go to Pete Hegseth to get his direction. He didn't go to President Trump to make a decision like that. He went to a military lawyer who warned him not to do it. And this may be a real problem for Admiral Bradley. He ordered a second strike, killing both men. Moments earlier, the video feed had shown the two men waving their arms and looking skyward. People who saw the footage said it was unclear, they added, why they were doing so. They were hoping someone would see them in the water and rescue them. The span of 30-plus minutes between the first strike and the second strike has become the most consequential moment in Admiral Bradley's 3 decades of military service, one that includes direct involvement in more than 1,000 lethal strikes governed by the law of armed conflict central to understanding the events of September 2nd, and whether the strike survivors were lawful targets. The episode has put the admiral and his advisors under a spotlight alongside Hegseth, who has expressed support for Bradley while attempting to distance himself from the fallout. More on that fallout, and also a fairly shocking defiance of federal power by the mayor-elect of New York City. In what manner? We will get to that coming up on the Medved Show. And on the Michael Medved Show, there used to be this institution called Time Magazine's Man of the Year. And there was always a certain amount of excitement about that, about who would be now it's Person of the Year, of course, because you can't say or assume that it's going to be a man. And sometimes they have not specific individuals. They have a whole class of people. And that's what they did today with their announcement about Man of the Year. It's, of course, a disappointment for President Trump. We know who he would nominate as Person of the Year, or Person of the Century, or Person of the Millennium. Yes, it would be Donald John Trump, but no, he didn't get it. Who did? We will get to that. Meanwhile, there's a report from Fox. A federal judge in Greenbelt, Maryland, just this morning ordered the release of Salvadoran migrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Remember him? He was ordered released from federal immigration custody in Pennsylvania a long-awaited update in an extraordinary case that has dominated international headlines and federal court dockets for nearly 10 months. To say it's dominated international headlines is a little bit ridiculous. I'm sorry. It's been a distracting case. It does appear to be a complete government mess-up. And for Kilmer Abrego Garcia, he doesn't deserve this attention. There's nothing that dangerous about him or any kind of violent criminal record that would suggest that he needs to be incarcerated. He's been living in the United States. He has a wife and family here. And U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnes ordered Abrego Garcia released from the ICE Moshannon Valley Processing Center in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania, on the grounds that the Trump administration had not obtained the final notice of removal order that is needed to deport him to a third country, including a list of African nations they had previously identified for his removal. Since Abrego Garcia's return from wrongful detention in El Salvador, he has been redetained again without lawful authority, Judge Zinnes said in her order today. Now, does this mean they're going to find grounds to pick him up again and reincarcerate him? Remember, at one point they were trying to send him back to that prison in El Salvador. That did not work. And this entire focus on this individual, well, at least he wasn't the Time Magazine Man of the Year, Person of the Year. The Times says, they explain their choice this way: 2025 was the year when artificial intelligence's full potential roared into view, and when it became clear that there will be no turning back. For delivering the age of thinking machines, for wowing and worrying humanity, for transforming the present and transcending the possible, the architects of AI are Time's 2025 Person of the Year. Okay, it ought to be People of the Year because they have multiple architects of AI, not one. And there's some thought here that Time Magazine already awards Kids of the Year. So why don't they make up a new award, Baby Boomer or Senior Citizen of the Year? And then you could have President Trump on the cover again. Keep him happy. Why not? Meanwhile, somebody else who was talked about as a potential Person of the Year was Zohran Mamdani, because, look, let's face it, it is noteworthy when an open socialist and a real hater of the nation of Israel gets elected mayor of New York City. And Mamdani, the mayor-elect, was speaking to MSNBC about the city and about what he plans to do with the police department relative to President Trump's mass deportation plans and deployment of the National Guard. This is Mamdani, clip 17.
There is a circumstance in which if an ICE agent violates someone's rights here in New York City, they could be arrested by the police department?
I think if an ICE agent is breaking the law, then that is a law that they should be held accountable to.
What are you going to do if Greg Bovino shows up with the Border Patrol agents and goes down into the subway? You know how important the subway is to all working class people in this city and the chill factor that it would send. What do you do in response to something like that?
Well, my responsibility is to do the work necessary to ensure that that doesn't take place. And what I mean by that is by making the case to the federal administration that these kinds of actions do not serve the interests, even the ones they are actually putting forward. That what New Yorkers need from a federal administration is the kind of partnership that will actually keep New Yorkers safe in this city, and that What I also told the president is we have the NYPD here. We trust the NYPD to deliver that public safety. We do not need ICE and the National Guard to make that same case.
Okay, yeah, but they have ICE and the National Guard. They are dispatched not by him or by any mayor. They're dispatched by the President of the United States. And Mamdani went on to talk about sanctuary city law and laws, which he supports. Here again, Zoran Mamdani about what the NYPD should do. Clip 16.
Are you prepared to be arrested by the federal government if you stand up to their immigration enforcement?
I'm prepared for any consequence that comes for standing up for New Yorkers, because that's my job. That's what I ran to do. And I think that it's time that New Yorkers look at City Hall that's right here and see a reflection of their struggles as opposed to a reflection of the scandal that has engulfed so much of our politics.
I've also heard you say that no one is above the law and anyone can be held accountable. And that goes for the President of the United States and it also goes for ICE agents. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is there a scenario in which the NYPD under you could arrest ICE agents on the streets of New York for their behavior towards immigrants?
My focus is for the NYPD to not be assisting ICE in their immigration enforcement and to actually be following the policies of sanctuary city law. And I do believe, however, that for the law to have meaning, there has to be accountability for all of us. And that is something that is necessary to speak about, to talk about, to act on, no matter who we're referring to, because so many are losing faith in politics in this moment because they're seeing inconsistency take place at every different facet of our society.
And there's inconsistency here in a potential contest of wills between a mayor of New York and a president of the United States. And Mamdani doubled down in giving his own tips to New York immigrants who may be facing detention and deportation. This is clip 15.
Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, said this week that in response to that video you put out about knowing your rights, what to do if ICE comes knocking on your door, if you were mayor, you could have been violating the Constitution of the United States, and that she intimated that the Department of Justice might be looking into it. What's your response to Kristi Noem?
I'm proud to inform people of their rights, and I can't think of a more American thing to do than to speak about the protections that we all have under the law. Okay,
this looks like a brewing battle. And is that a battle in which Rudy Giuliani is going to play a role? Well, right now he's busy with other endeavors. There's also a very serious announcement by Donald Trump, which the midterm elections have not occurred as of yet. But it sounds like President Trump is conceding ahead of time. We will get to that. He indicated publicly that he believes the GOP will probably lose the midterms. And there is more regarding Kristi Noem. Did she walk out? Why did she walk out of a hearing during cross-examination, a hearing of the House Homeland Security Committee? We will get to that and more coming up in a day of battles everywhere in this greatest nation on God's green earth.